welcome to the channel. My name is Taylor, and I know the title of this video sounds like clickbait. I don't even know what the title is yet, but I'm sure that whatever title I will choose will sound like clickbait, and that is because today there is such a massive update to the Headrush ecosystem. And normally I would like to give you guys like a hook into this, like I would ease it in, you know, give you a little bit of a backstory. We don't have time for that today because the update to the Headrush ecosystem is so massive that I don't even know how I'm gonna fit all of it into this video, but I'm going to do my damnedest to try. So obviously there's a new board here. This is the Headrush Flex Prime. Probably the least interesting part of this video, if I'm being real with you. It's cool, people like the MX5, and this is like the Prime update to the MX5. That's worth making a video on its own, I guess. But to me, to be honest with you, this is the least impressive part of the update. We are gonna use this, we are gonna go over some of the features in the Flex Prime, but I'm probably not gonna dive into this super heavily because I wanna focus on some of the other things that are coming with the Flex Prime. You ever been somewhere in public and you hold the door open to be nice, and then like 20 people walk through the door and you're just like come on, get through the, I was just holding it for that one person, not all these people. That's kind of like the Flex Prime right now. It's just holding the door open for all these updates. This is the new Headrush Flex. It is the successor to the MX5, and as you can see, it comes in the same form factor as the MX5 did. It has the same updated UI as the other units in the Prime family with the real amp and pedal graphics, as well as the easier to navigate menus, the 11 to 14 blocks per rig. But the biggest update, and the one we're going to focus on in this video, is the addition of the amp clone player as well as the super clone player. Don't worry, I'm going to get into it soon. It has a direct Wi-Fi connection for sharing clones and presets as well as firmware updates. It has Bluetooth for audio streaming, and now it supports Headrush Remote, the wireless web-based editor software. On the front of the unit we have 3 foot switches, and the Flex actually has a scene switching mode which can assign 2 scenes per foot switch. We have our main encoder wheel, our main volume knob, and the expression pedal, as well as the high resolution 4-inch touch display. On the back of the unit we have a 1/4-inch input for our guitar, a 1/4-inch input for an expression pedal, a 1/4-inch effects loop, 1/4-inch left and right outputs, a 3.5mm headphones output, a 3.5mm auxiliary input, 3.5mm MIDI in and out, our USB port, and the power switch. The Headrush Flex can also be used as an audio interface with a 24-bit 96 kHz resolution. The Headrush Flex also features a looper, and if you saw my original Headrush Prime video, there's a lot of different things you can do with this looper. You can play loops backwards, you can slow down the speed, increase the speed, all with the foot switches, and you have up to 5 minutes per loop or 20 total minutes with the overdubs, all MIDI controllable, by the way. And all of this comes bundled with the Revalver software we're going to discuss here just in a minute at $499 US or $199 US for just the software alone. So the other things coming to the Headrush ecosystem. Number 1, an editor. Has hell frozen over? What's going on here? Now the editor is web-based, which pros and cons. You don't have to install an app on whatever you want. Like if something has internet service, you can use it. So, you know, that makes it really easy and versatile. But what comes along with that is you do have to be connected to the internet or using your phone or something like that as a hotspot. Like they have to be connected to the same network. So I didn't create the editor. Don't leave me complaints. I didn't do it. I'm just telling you what happened. Okay? The next big interesting change that comes with the Flex Prime is the Flex Prime cannot actually clone gear. You're probably very confused right now. You're like, why are you excited about that? Well, that's because Headrush has actually released software that does the cloning that comes with the Flex Prime. Now, if you have the core or you have the Headrush Prime, like the flagship unit, those can still clone from the units themselves. But if you have the Flex Prime, it's bundled with it, like, you know, not a big deal, right? Like you just use the software. But with the software comes the ability to clone VST plugins. You can load the VST plugins up natively in the software, you can clone them, and then you can load those clones onto your Headrush devices. That's not it. We're not done yet. See what I'm talking about? Like the holding the door with all the things? The biggest thing, something that's really forward thinking to me in this analog gear replicating space, anything that does this gear replication, whether it's, you know, the Kemper, the Quad Cortex, the 𝗏𝐿𝐿, whatever it is, they're all sort of snapshots. Right? And when the Headrush Prime came out, I actually praised one of the features that it had, which is when you clone, you could actually dial in the settings, like as they existed on your amp or whatever, while you were cloning it, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, it's like a small thing, but you still had like a snapshot, and you could sort of tweak it a little bit after the fact, but not much. So what Headrush and Revalver have done in this amp cloner software is they've actually made it so that you can have a super clone. So what a super clone does is it allows you to take clones from different states on your amplifier, and then when you dial the gain knob, it will morph between those different snapshots, so to speak. Now we're gonna go over all of this in the video, but what I think is really interesting about the super clones, and what I think really excites me sort of about this update, is with the super clones, let's say you make 4 different clones of clean states on an amplifier, and then you want there to be lead also. So you want the gain knob to go from very clean, chimey, all the way to brutal, nasty lead tones, which is like kind of crazy for an amplifier to do. Most amplifiers don't do that, right? You're kind of creating a whole new amplifier. Like maybe you want a 5150 or, you know, a Bogner Uberschall or just something crazy on the other end of that. You can create clones of the states of that amplifier as well, throw them all together in a super clone. And I did this. We're gonna go over it. We're gonna do it. I'm just trying to explain to you all the things, because I don't know how long it is. We're gonna leave chapters down here for everything, but the first thing we're gonna do is go over to the computer and go over the software. And I'm gonna show you how I actually created the clones and super clones that we're gonna demo. We're here at the computer. I have the Revalver amp cloner software loaded up here. Okay, so we're in the amp cloner software. We are in the cloner tab. We're gonna select software. We're gonna do amp only preamp, guitar. Now you can see here is all of your routing information, and right here you have select plugins. So here are all my plugins. I gotta admit, the first time I loaded this up, I was like, what? No way. And you can see it's loading the plugin up natively inside the amp cloner application. I'm gonna make sure the cabinet's off. I'm gonna make sure everything is off besides just this preamp sound. And just like with coding on the Headrush core or the Headrush Prime, you can set your bass, middle, and treble here. I'm not gonna spend a tremendous amount of time on this, getting this perfect. I just want it to be like in the ballpark. And while this is cloning, one of the things that I really liked about the Headrush products is when you are cloning something or replicating like an analog piece of gear, all of these software or hardware platforms have different amounts of time that they take. And the nice thing about the Headrush stuff is it doesn't take very long. I'm already at 42% right now, and it's been, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half. It goes really, really quickly. The nice thing about that is sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes you might be trying to get a capture of something, or you might be, you know, trying to recreate your amp's tone in a piece of software, make a setup mistake or set a knob wrong. The longer that process takes, if you have to redo it, it just becomes tedious and kind of a pain. So that is one major thing that I like about the cloning process on the Headrush. I mean, look, we're almost done. I mean, that was less than 2 minutes. And I'm just refining this here a little bit. You know, it's not exact, but I don't think that like having a clone that's exact is the most important thing to me, at least. I just want it to sound good. You know, we're just gonna test this out. We'll see what it ends up like when we're all done. Now we're gonna pick a skin, and there's 9 skins to choose from here. To me, this doesn't really matter too much, I guess. We're actually gonna go through this cloning process 2 more times here. So the reason we're capturing this multiple times is for the super clone, which I'm gonna get into here in just a second. But it's important to note that every time it loads your VST, it's going to load it into its default state. So you might wanna save your changes, and that way you can load up your preset, just FYI. We're actually going to do this with both the amplifier in the plugin as well as the pedal that I use to boost it. So the way the super clone works, and I will get into this more in detail as we do it, but the super clone essentially will morph between different states. So if you, let's say, have your amplifier at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then at max, that's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna use 3 super clones, but you could use more if you wanted to. It will actually morph between those states. I don't know exactly how the technology works, I just know how it was explained to me, but it will morph between those states. Like the software will kind of figure out what the tonality should be between 2 different states. And what's really cool about this is you can blend different amplifiers together to create sort of unique sounds. I mean, look, if we're gonna move this analog replicating sort of technology forward, I think this was a really unique, interesting way to do it. I mean, we're in the digital age. Why do we want one-to-one recreations of 5150s? Okay, now that we have different states from this one amp sim, we're gonna create a super clone. So we're gonna go into super clone here, and then there are already some clones in here. By the time this releases, there will be artist clones in here, there will be artist super clones. I'm in this beta software phase of this, so you know, it's still being developed right now. So you are gonna wanna keep track of your naming conventions. Mine, I didn't do a great job with it on this one, but we kinda know what's going on, so let's just keep going here. So without a name is gonna be our low gain. That's gonna be the first clone here, and this will go in order of your lowest gain to your highest gain. So make sure that when you are adding these, you know which clones you are adding. That's where the naming convention comes into play. Next is gonna be our nameless 2, that was our amp at noon, and then nameless 3 is going to be the amp all the way gain. And then you can see a nameless 4 here, just for those of you curious. I made a second one just because the screen recording got messed up and I had to go through it again, you know. Whatever, no big deal, right? Okay, we're gonna go next. We don't want this to change the volume, we just want it to change the gain. So we're gonna hit next. We'll just, whatever, skin. I will leave it up on the cloud for you guys to check out, but if it sucks, then I'll make a better one. So I have 2 super clones loaded up here, and despite this having a touchscreen, it's very small and it is away from me. So I do want to test out the editor feature. Let's actually do that. You go into your settings here, and as long as you're connected to the same Wi-Fi, and then you go into your Wi-Fi settings, it will tell you you have Headrush Remote, Headrush 𝗏𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 local. Boom, that connected so quick. Oh my God, I'm not screen recording this. So it is a web-based editor. I know some people don't like this. I think most people are gonna be fine with this though, but let's test it and see how responsive it is and everything. So we have a super clone loaded up here, and you can see the pretty much editing like this is almost 1-for-1 like it is on the actual unit here. So in the super clone here, you can see that I have that nameless clone loaded up. It sounds pretty cool. It's very interesting and a little bit weird playing a clone of a plugin for reasons that I will get into here in a minute, but let's go to the app here. And you can see the settings here on the super clone. I'm gonna turn this bass down. It's like a little bit woofy. And I did notice this when I was cloning, it tended to have a little bit more bass than usual. Now I will say this, I think refining your clones, especially when creating a super clone, is super duper important. I found that adjusting the sag very slightly had quite a massive difference on the capture and like the fidelity of the capture, as well as just making sure that the gain and the master volume were correct. You know, just trying to get those things as close together as possible. And this is just my experience. Take this with a super big grain of salt. But I did notice that when I just left everything to the 50%, like I didn't adjust the bass, middle, and the treble, I had more consistency in getting an accurate clone. So take that for what it's worth. Ear mileage may vary, but these clones happen very quickly. So if you need to go back and refine things, you know, I don't think it's that big of a deal because it doesn't take that long to do. Like you can knock out a lot of clones in a very short period of time. So the editors here, this is cool. I think this is actually not gonna be the best way to go about editing on this video now that I'm doing it. But I just wanted to show that the editors here, it works. It exists, it's a thing. People have been asking for this for 10+ years. It's cool that they finally did it. Mostly what I'm gonna be doing here is focusing on the super clones and the gain knob and blending between them. So this first super clone is the grind pedal that I was boosting the amplifier with in the Fortin suite. Let's turn that off and let's hear the super clone of just the amp section. So it's very interesting cloning a plugin. It does sound cool. It sounds pretty cool and unique, but it does sound like it sort of has this sheen over it. Sometimes you get that just with normal cloning, capturing, whatever you want to call it. You sort of get this like, you know, smoothing effect, for lack of a better word. And I noticed that with the VST plugin. So I did make a super clone with my PRS MT15, and then I did an experimental amplifier. We'll get to that here later in a minute and see if it's different doing that versus cloning the VST, but I want to kind of experiment here with this one a little bit. So if we go into our gain here, you can see it's at 76%. And when I made the super clone, I captured the amp in 3 different states, 3 different gain settings essentially. So we adjust the gain. If we turn it all the way down, this is the gain at like 1 to 2 on the plugin. It did change tonally. Just like when you turn the gain up on the plugin, or a real amplifier for that case, it will sort of like make the low end a little bit thicker and whatnot. Let's see if that happens. I really like it right there. And that sheen thing that I was talking about isn't as apparent at this setting. So you can really tell there's like some morphing happening behind the scenes. It doesn't just sound like crossfades. And I almost wonder if I spent more time with the amp cloner plugin, if I could get it to sound a little bit closer to what I'm hearing through my monitors. Or maybe that is what I'm hearing and I'm just hearing it through a cabinet so it sounds different. I don't really know. And then if we turn the gain all the way up, this is gain 2 all the way up on the plugin. It sounds really cool, but when we get the gain that high, it almost sounds maybe like a little bit more compressed, like maybe I should have spent some more time refining that. But still, I just want to demonstrate this feature. I want to demonstrate how cool I think it is. Let's take this back. Actually, let's just take this to straight 50%. Let's see how this reacts to an external boost here and then versus the super clone of a boost. With an external boost. By the way, if you're interested in this, this is The Devil from my company, Obsidian Audio. There are links for that down in the description. Let's keep moving on. So let's go back here. I'm gonna turn our external boost off here. I'm gonna go back to the grind. The gain is at 0 right now. Off. And on this one, I did have it adjust the volume. So we should get more output from this super clone as we turn up, just like you would on a real boost pedal. It's very cool. I like this a lot. However, this does remind me, and I mean, this makes a lot of sense that I'm gonna say it, like it sounds dumb that I'm saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. This does remind me of when I hooked up a laptop into like a power amp pedal and a cabinet and was playing through like a VST plugin through an actual cabinet. It's a lot like that, where there's sheen. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like smoothing or something. It sounds sonically very, very cool in the room, but there's not quite like the same dynamics you would have with like analog gear, I guess, maybe is the way I would put it. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. I mean, it feels like a VST. That just sounds like I just said the dumbest thing ever. But it does, it's not magic. We're gonna go ahead and turn this first super clone off. So this is the lead channel on my MT15. All we have in the chain right now is the super clone. Yeah, so this does not sound or feel the same as the VST clone. This is the gain on the M15, very low. Same thing, you can't turn it to 0 or there will be no signal. So the gain is at maybe like 1 or 2, or whatever that comes out to in clocks, 7 o'clock, I don't know. And I will note here also that when I was using the amp cloning software, it was much easier to get an accurate clone of this amplifier versus a VST. Like I had to work pretty hard with the VSTs and I had to refine them quite a bit. Whereas like with the actual analog gear, I still had to refine some of them, but it was much, much closer, much easier to do. Take that for what it's worth. I did it off camera, so I just thought I would explain that to you. Okay, let's dial the gain up here and see what happens. It is kind of behaving like the amplifier would behave. It's not exact. I mean, we are relying on software to sort of fill in the gaps here, but it's way different than if you were just adjusting the gain on, whatever you want to call this technology, like the snapshot version of this technology, if you catch my drift. Normally I would have this amp set to maybe something like this. I think it's a killer, dude. I think it sounds really, really good and kind of crazy at the price that this comes in at. And the fact that you can get the software standalone, I'm not sure if they offer a trial period. They should. I will leave links for everything, obviously, down in the description. But it's crazy to me. You could get this software, and if you wanted to, we haven't even gotten into all the stuff that you can do with the Flex Prime. But it's crazy to me that the cost that this thing comes in at and the amount of features that it offers, and now the fact that they have this cloning technology, which is something that only they offer. It does a thing that is very unique to them, but also it opens up so many fun possibilities. Why do you want to just recreate your 5150? Don't you want something new and unique? You know what I mean? Where this gets really interesting is when you start morphing between the different amplifiers. And I'm sure everyone and their mom is going to be talking about this, but it is definitely a unique thing. So this is my MT15. What I did here is I did 4 clones of the clean channel and then 4 clones of the lead channel. And then I organized them from like the cleanest sound to, the highest lead sound. So the boost is off here. All we're doing is using the clone. Here's the clean at 1. something really cool just happened here. So we're starting to get into the lead sounds. So this is a very unique sound somewhere between the clean and the lead channel that doesn't exist on the actual amplifier. And now we sound like we're in the straight up lead channel of this amplifier. But it's very interesting that you can make such unique sounds. And this is just the same amplifier, different channels of the same amplifier. Like imagine what you could do. All my amps are at the office right now, unfortunately. Let's just keep this moving here. Now I do want to briefly touch on some of the other things you can do with the Flex Prime, but maybe you could see why I wanted to focus so much on the clones and the super clones and the apps. Because I think these are all features that are really exciting, you know? I mean, look, we have access to a lot of different effects and features here. Let's just try and like a crazy effects chain and see how much CPU we end up using. Because on the MX5, you could throw a lot at that unit before you actually maxed out the CPU, like more than most multi-effects units. But let's just go, excuse me. Let's just go with Shimmer, Soundscape. I just wanted to make this pit stop here because I thought it was cool. We're still trying to overload this guy, so let's do that. I'm not trying to create any like cool sort of effect here. I'm just trying to find the things that I think are the most resource intensive and load them up so that we can see about this CPU here. If the graphic looks more intense, then it's more resource intense, I'm assuming, right? Wow, we have a sequencer in here. So our CPU is flashing there, so we're hitting the ceiling on that. Let's, okay, now we're stabilizing. So you could get quite a few things in this chain, and it's not like they're achieving that through having lower quality effects. That shimmer is really cool, and like the sequencer and stuff in there. I hope you guys can see what I'm talking about now. I hope you guys can see why I was so enthusiastic in the beginning of this video. I really like what Headrush is doing, and if they would have just released an updated MX5, I would have still thought that was a pretty big win, because the MX5 is like, you know, a relatively inexpensive unit, and to have the cloning features on that would have been really awesome. But they went way above and beyond that and came out with features that I don't think I've seen anywhere else yet. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I've never seen this sort of like morphing, cloning technology before. I think it opens up the door for a lot of creative possibilities, but I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this. Are you super stoked on it? Am I drinking the Kool-Aid? I don't really know. I'm just a guy on the internet making a video. It's getting me amped right now, but I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about it. All right, shout out to the people at Headrush for sending me one of these to check out for you guys, but more importantly, shout out to you for being here. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you really like what I do here on the channel, consider subscribing or being super duper OP and joining all of these beautiful people over here on Patreon, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.